First of all, we need clarification on how often the task force is going to sit. Second of all, it isn't a good situation where everyone doesn't get to the table. We all acknowledge that. But at the end of the day, there's a beef crisis out there. We cannot just bury our heads in the sand. We know that there is injunctions on some people that basically they're referring to the fifth quarter, those people, that there was a protest there. They were told by people to, if all protests were stood down, that the injunctions would be lifted. Can you try and use influence to help that situation? But on top of that, the most important thing is that the farmers, that the representatives get back to the table and get the task force up and running, because at the end of the day, beef is on its knees, we know at the moment. We need solutions. We don't need to say that this set us back or the other thing set us back. We need to make sure that the chairman of this takes it by the scruff of the necks and moves it forward. And to be honest about it, we cannot move forward while there's injunctions hanging there if you listen to the farm leaders. So that needs resolving.
All of your time, but I know Deputy Murphy's interest, and unfortunately, due to standing orders, just those who table. Yeah. Well, we know your interest. Minister Doyle.
Thanks, Laskin Corla. Thank the deputies. As you will and have outlined, be aware, the inaugural meeting of the Beef Task Force was scheduled to take place on Monday, the 14th of October, but unfortunately had to be suspended following events outside of Agriculture House. Members of the task force were prevented from attending the meeting and were subject to physical violence and intimidation. Members of staff of my department were also subjected to abusive and threatening behaviour. And while I and we all support the rights of individuals to engage in peaceful protest, I hope that everybody agrees that there is no excuses for the behaviour which occurred on Monday. It's completely unacceptable. I'd like to thank the department staff who managed the situation in a calm and professional manner. As I said, it's in the interest of everybody involved in the beef industry that the work of the task force should go ahead. The independent chair and my officials are continuing to consult with stakeholders with a view to progressing key elements of the agreement. The task force remit is to monitor the implementation of the actions arising from the agreement reached on the 15th of September and offers the most viable platform for strategic engagement with key stakeholders. The agreement involves a number of interventions which will provide immediate benefit for beef farmers or beef producers, as well as a range of strategic measures which seek to address structural imbalances in the sector. Beef producers will benefit from an immediate increase in a range of bonuses. This will increase the level of bonus being paid on certain animals, as well as significantly increase the number of animals which will be eligible for a bonus. The cumulative effect is that over 70% of all steers and heifers slaughtered will now be eligible for a bonus on top of the basic price. A number of actions in the area of market transparency, beef promotion and strengthening the position of the farmer in the supply chain are included in the agreement. These measures set a course towards greater clarity for all stakeholders. The Department is also proactively engaging in several potential beef producer organisations which have the potential to strengthen the bargaining power of beef farmers in the supply chain. 2 producer organisations have already been formally recognised in the recent weeks. The Minister, we established the Beef Market Task Force to provide the leadership to develop a sustainable pathway for the future of the beef sector in terms of economic, environmental and social sustainability. The intention was that the task force should provide a robust implementation structure for commitments entered into in the agreement, with timelines and stakeholder engagement. So I would urge all parties to make every effort to ensure that this important work can commence. Thank you.
There's a few simple things that we need clarification on. Where's the price index? It was to be done a month ago, it's not done. Second of all, as you've pointed out, threatening or whatever, that solves nothing for anybody, and none of us here would agree with that. But the one thing that needs to be done, Minister, is while there's something hanging over people's heads, whether a phone call is needed or a goodwill gesture by a parent company of a company, someone needs to stand up to the mark and be counted. Secondly, Minister, you might answer how many times is it envisaged that it meets? And thirdly, Minister, my understanding of the agreement that was reached was that 4 months was required before weights or anything like that could be changed, and we have seen over the last week different weights and categories being announced by certain processors. And is that within the remit at the moment, or why isn't that tackled? And being honest about it, the chairperson of this has to show leadership of this task force. They have to stand up and be counted and make sure that things get solved behind the scenes before you let things get out of hand. Thank you.
Well, on that last point, I'd say the chairman has shown leadership. He actually, him and members of the officials from the department walked down the street, out through the group that were outside, and down to meet other farm organisations that declined the offer to come upstairs and meet them. And he is and will continue to embark on a range of bilateral discussions with each stakeholder party. I can't give you a date at the moment. I wish I could. And the issues that you talk about injunctions and that would have been better dealt with upstairs if the people had been let in, instead of giving them, I'm not saying a reason, but not allowing them to be confronted about that under the structure that was there, which was the task force. So that should have been dealt with as maybe a preliminary to the meeting. As regards the number of meetings, there will be as many as is necessary. I don't want to preempt the work of the chairman, but there are a number of measures that need to be taken place, and they won't all necessarily need everybody from the task force group, but they may need working groups. I'm only speculating as to the way I envisage it might happen. So there may be a range of meetings that are not task force meetings, but are people from within the task force who will actually be toing and froing. So, I mean, there is a template there. There is an agreement in place. There's actions and measures which need to be indicated on. I'll have to get you an answer on the index. I don't have it to hand. But these are the things that should be dealt with through the forum that's established. So it appealed to everybody. The people who feel aggrieved at the way they were treated on Monday, the same as the people who didn't come up to the meeting, and to those who actually were outside preventing them. Let this task force get about its work, show the goodwill. We had an exhaustive set of meetings on over two periods. Initially, went out in Back Weston, and then secondly, on the 14th and 15th in Agriculture House. Let this task force get up and running, because it's in all our interest, any of us that have a real serious commitment to the beef sector, to see progress on all fronts.